Did you know that recently Bill Gates and Prime Minister Narendra Modi engaged each other in a conversation without the use of interpreters? Instead, they used the homegrown tool called Bhashini, which is powered by artificial intelligence, which allowed Bill Gates to get a real time translation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's conversations in Hindi. Did you know that English is the most preferred language in the world for the internet? No Indian language figures in the top 10. Hello and welcome to another edition of Capital Calculus. I am your host, Anil Padmanabhan. I don't know about you, but I envy people who can speak in a raft of regional Indian languages. They can do so much more. At the least, they can communicate to so many more people. But now there's relief for people like me. Bhashini, an audacious project India launched 2 years ago, uses artificial intelligence to translate regional languages. Bhashini, as a result, is breaking down the barriers of language and allowing people to communicate to each other in regional languages. In a country like India, this is immensely empowering, especially given the fact that we have official 22 languages. The Bhashini project is democratizing the internet like never before for Indians. To understand more about this project, I spoke to Amitabh Nag. He is the CEO of Bhashini. As I mentioned in the introduction, the most high-profile proof of concept was the conversation between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Bill Gates. While the PM spoke in Hindi, Bill Gates spoke in English. The interpreter was replaced by Bhashini. Take a look at this little clip that I am showcasing for you.
कि कॉमन मैन कैसे एआई का उपयोग कर सकता है। जैसे मैंने G20 में एआई का बहुत उपयोग किया। मेरे पूरे G20 का परिसर था, उसमें पूरा का पूरा एआई का उपयोग करके सारे इंटरप्रेटर्स की व्यवस्था मैंने एआई से की। मैंने मेरे सभी ड्राइवर्स को मोबाइल फोन पर ऐप डाउनलोड करवा दिया, उसके साथ बैठे हुए गेस्ट उनको करवा दिया। मान लीजिए वो फ्रेंच भाषा जानते हैं तो ड्राइवर के पास ऐप में फ्रेंच की व्यवस्था थी, वो ड्राइवर के साथ फ्रेंच में बोलते थे, ड्राइवर अपनी लैंग्वेज में सुनता था, ड्राइवर अपनी लैंग्वेज में जवाब देता था। यानी ड्राइवर के साथ कम्युनिकेशन किसी भी लैंग्वेज में वो कर सकते थे। मैंने अभी एक प्रयोग किया, मैं काशी तमिल संगम में कार्यक्रम करता हूँ, तो काशी में तमिलनाडु के लोग आए हुए थे। तमिल भाषा मैं बोल नहीं सकता हूँ, तो मैंने एआई का उपयोग किया। मैं हिंदी में बोला और सबने मेरा भाषण तमिल में सुना एआई के द्वारा।
I began by asking Amitabh to walk us through the idea of Bhashini and the pain point it was trying to solve.
So, as you know, India is a linguistically diverse country. We speak about Constitution itself gives us about 22 languages, and beyond that, there is about 100 plus languages which are spoken. During in the entire setup of country, 100 plus languages are spoken by 100,000 plus people. So there is a huge linguistic diversity in this country, and we have been trying to solve this problem in various ways earlier, but artificial intelligence and the power of GPU actually gives us an opportunity to not to have the burden of learning one more language to do our day to day work. And in fact, it is stitching the entire linguistic diversity as a united country as far as language is concerned. So I might be speaking in my language, you might be speaking in your language, but we still are able to communicate and talk to each other. Both of us don't need to learn another language to actually make it happen.
So, can you cite some examples of Bhashini in action for regular citizens?
So, I today also, if I want to, go to a city where I don't know the language and I want to communicate it to the taxi driver, I can use the Bhashini app, which has got a converse feature where, you are actually speaking in one language and then, translating it and let the other person hear in the language, and then he can speaks in that language and you are able to hear another language. So that's a very common thing, besides the fact that you suddenly got uh, uh, somewhere a placard or a billboard which has certain thing in some other language. You take a snap of it and you translate it. Maybe at a metro station, you're seeing one metro station going to another metro station. You don't know the language, you can take a snippet of it, translate it, and then you know where you have to go. Earlier, you will perhaps be asking five more people, and one of them will know your language, and then he or she will guide you. That is a situation which a common person can use Bhashini to actually ensure that he is able to talk or communicate. Besides that, of course, he can use a text. You get sometimes documents specifically in one language, and you are wanting to translate it to other language to understand it better, so you can pass it through the system and know it. So that's are some of the very common usages which Bhashini can be kept, put on use.
So, you mentioned this app. When was the app launched and how many downloads have happened? How popular is it?
We are approximately having 500,000 downloads now, and it is available on the Play Store and App Store for you to download it and utilize it. Right? We have kept it under a version which is a pre-launch version to ensure that people can give the feedback which is required to improve the app. As you know, the system is based on artificial intelligence, and the opportunity for improvement is always there. So we would like to encourage people to give a feedback so that we can improve the things which are there. And so far, the feedbacks have been positive. There have been some improvement suggestions which we are continuously implementing.
Okay, so it's in a beta stage. This
Yeah.
the use of AI, which you mentioned right at the beginning. This idea worldwide is pretty old. I mean, in the 50s, 60s, it began this venture. But in India, it's somewhere around the 80s that this process began independently in various universities, etc. But post this millennium, there seems to be a tipping point which is achieved. So, what was the trigger? Was it the technology or was it the ubiquitousness of its use that triggered this makeover, as it were?
See, yeah, so the technology has progressed a lot. It is a compute intensive technology. And ever since the GPUs, graphical processing units, came, parallel processing became reality, and the application programming interface (APIs) became the reality of the life, where you can actually send something via application.
So, Amitabh, I just want to understand philosophically the idea of this technology. Is it like a digital public good in the case of, say, UPI, where there are public digital rails on which people build innovations and whatever they want to do? Is this something similar? So, is
Yeah, it is something very similar. The idea here is that we would provide there are two very capital intensive things which involve this technology. One is the compute power which is required, and second is the investment required on data to create the AI models, right? The digital data which is there. Both these investments government has taken up, so that these two things are available for create the AI models are available, the after collecting the data, and of course the platform is available, so that you don't have to run around for GPUs. The APIs you are made available to various solution providers, who will then create various solutions on top of it, so spurring an innovation around it. Currently we are doing many of the things we are doing ourselves, in the sense that we are creating those innovative solutions ourselves, but we would like industry to take it up. And towards that, we are now launched grand innovation challenges and hackathons to ensure that people are doing this particular job together.
So these APIs, Amitabh, are plug and play. So anybody can just take them and incorporate them and then do their whatever they want to do.
Yeah, it is plug and play, but I will add a caveat to it that you see, what we have done is to create AI models for general purpose use, where the language is treated as a language and it is one platform. But the challenge which you will have is that every domain has its own glossary, right? So the way the means, if I go to railways, they will have railway stations, train numbers, train names, which is not going to be used in any other domain, right? If I go to the legal domain, there is their own glossary which is there. So we have a long way to go to build those glossaries, right? And means even a simple website translation, the home will be translated as ghar, and the translation is not wrong in literal terms, but you have to make it mukprasht if it is a website, right? While as ghar will be translated as it should be ghar when I'm saying that I'm going to your home, तो मैं आपके घर जा रहा हूँ. So there are different glossaries. The contextual meaning of the words differ, and that is something which has to be brought into the translation domain. And for that, the domain customization of the models have to happen in collaboration with the organizations, nodal organizations, who can actually work with us to incorporate that, so that the the systems can be put on their use. One of the examples is, of course, NPCI, with whom we had launched the voice-based payment. So the payment domain itself has its own vocabulary, and hence that vocabulary has to be taken into account to create a model for them. There are obviously some of the generalized things which come out as an offshoot of those trainings, which can be used in other domains also. But at the end of the day, there is a domain setup which is required, and hence we are encouraging people to do a proof of concept, and then evaluate, give feedback, and then it's an iterative process, even though API integration is a more or less a plug and play job.
To test the efficacy of the translation ability of Bhashini, I went onto the site and fed in some random text, basically a few lines from my weekly newsletter on Substack. I was blown away. The translation was mostly spot on. And the thing with AI is that it improves with use. So this was just a random one off. Take a look.
Generally, the efficacy standards are maintained for users who are coming and using the system. So I'm not finding those issues. As I said, the issues are found where I'm getting into a specific domain. As I said, if I get into railways, I need to be very aware of the rail. The models need to be trained on the station names, train names, etc., etc. So the issues come up there. Issues come up on a domain adaptability. The other part of the thing where speech to speech has a challenge is, of course, the way people speak. We don't generally do not communicate of always in a grammatically correct language. It is broken sentences, as well as means it's generally the way you understand. So the models have to start getting trained to that, develop extra intelligence to actually decipher the context, as well as the emotions, as well as the way people generally speak.
So, Amitabh, when you this idea of yours of bridging the digital divide, language divide in this case, and taking the internet and regional languages to people, how do you see it shaping and influencing the future growth of India's digital economy? Where I sit, I see it as an exponential growth in the offing. Am I right?
You're right. The exponential growth, when we see our graph, when I was, reviewing my graph for last 6 months on inferencing, it was actually exponential, right? So let's look at one of the sectors which we can perhaps talk about, so that we understand what we are trying to say. Currently, the D2C, digital to customers, right, as or the e-commerce, retail is limited to 20% of the people, maximum 30% of the people who are living on the right side of digital divide as well as literacy divide, right, as well as the language divide, right. Now, if I induct voice and if I induct multilinguality into this entire e-commerce ecosystem, we are actually looking at expanding it to at least 30 to 40%, if not more, right? And the induction of voice is very important because it bridges the digital divide as well as it bridges the literacy divide. I can tell the machine, do this, and the machine would do in my own language, right? So it will start doing what I want him to do. So I will say, I want to build a cart, get me one shirt of 46 size, get me one pant, and then, deduct my money from this account. It will say that, okay, you would have got a OTP, get a PIN number, put it into it, or otherwise I will say, no, no, this 1,000 rupee shirt is not good. Can you give it to me in 700? And he says that, no, no, it could be, let's make it midway, it is 850. And if this is the user journey which we are able to emulate into the D2C commerce platforms, uh, we have gone into multiple things. Now the AI as well as the language technology as well as the voice induction into it makes this user's journey at least imaginable. And what you can imagine now is also getting implemented. So from that perspective, yes, you are right. It's looking at an exponential increase in the terms of digital economy, as well as looking at how people can be brought into the mainstream of activities.
In fact, I think you have tied up with ONDC, right, which is looking to
Yeah, we tied
democratize
up with one.
e-commerce.
Yeah.
So, any projections of numbers that we can think of, where ONDC,
So
where it is today, where
we started off with a very humble beginning there. We identified about 10 problem statement. We have put 5 of the problem statement into a hackathon, and we are going to get a solutions around it, and then we will scale it up. So the key thing which we have to realize is that each of the actions which we are currently doing in one way or the other as a setup, we have to take it as a use case and then try to solve it. It cannot be in general solved, because when you are looking at voice as an intervention, you have to take care of security, you have to take care of process flow, you have to take care of the speaker ID, you have to take care of diarization, etc., etc. A lot of things which come into picture, and hence what we are trying to do is to say that we take some steps forward so that we are in a position to see the deployment and effect and impact of what we are doing.
and Amitabh, are you seeing a startup ecosystem evolving around Bhashini on voice applications, or it is still too early?
Well, we launched the first velocity challenge, which we launched for startups. We had about 50 odd entries, and out of them we selected 5, and obviously there was another 5 who were runners up. Those 5 we have uh, you know those 5 were made an investors pitch, and the results have been extremely positive. Similarly, in the sprint hackathon, we again had about 50 odd entries on the voice itself. Most of our applications or use cases which we are trying to do is incorporating voice, so that we are able to leapfrog the language technology solution. And in fact, we have done that. The speech to speech translation application, the people are following us rather than we following the system. So yes, there are a lot of startups, there are a lot of people who are working on voice. There is some work still to be done in there, but I guess that we will be able to cross the bridge which is required for value for money systems.
Finally, Amitabh, how does Bhashini stack up against similar efforts worldwide?
See, the if you actually look at it, from a perspective of what National Language Technology Mission is supposed to do, it is, and what is Digital India Bhashini is supposed to do, we are basically defining the way forward or defining the strategy for language technology solutions create. One is creation, growth, and adoption, so that language does not become a barrier, right? In that, we are also doing research, we are also creating IPs, we are also enabling technology transfer, and we are also collaborating with research institutes nationally as well as internationally. The objective of us as Digital India Bhashini Division is to grow the ecosystem. And for that, if you actually are our forays into like technology and reference application is not about whether my technology is better than your technology. It is about which way to move forward. So, which way to move forward is, no language should be left behind.
In the final analysis, it is clear that India has pulled off another coup with respect to digital public goods. You have heard of UPI, CoWIN, and a range of other DPGs. In this instance, Bhashini is using AI to translate regional languages. As a result, Indians can now talk to each other in their own language without seeking recourse to a common medium like, say, Hindi or English. Imagine the empowerment and access this is enabling. Like Amitabh pointed out, if you combine this with other DPGs, this empowerment is exponential in nature. He cited the example of ONDC. Using Bhashini, it is taking commerce to places beyond the Indian metros. Effectively, India is democratizing the internet like never before, especially using Bhashini. The idea is leave no language behind. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to StratNews Global on YouTube. Hit the bell icon so that you don't miss any updates. And please to share your thoughts, ideas and suggestions with us. I'm available on Twitter at Capital Calculus. I'll be back next week with another episode. Till then, stay safe.